Good afternoon, everyone. Today I would like to give a talk about the Renaissance. I'll start with some basic facts that you surely very well know from your culture studies or your history classes already, but still I would like to remind you of those. You surely know that the term Renaissance is used to denote a phase in the cultural development of Europe between the 14th and the 17th centuries. The period of the Renaissance started in Italy in the 14th century, then it proceeded to Germany and France, and only then England caught up these trends. That happened in the 16th century, and England was one of the latest countries to acquire that experience. The term Renaissance itself was borrowed from French and it means rebirth. This term was used because, speaking about the Renaissance, we speak about the rebirth of interest for ancient Greek and Roman culture and art in the European countries of those times. The period of the Renaissance was a lot more progressive as opposed to the Middle Ages, and that happened thanks to numerous factors. The most important of them was definitely the social structure that had changed greatly by the time of the Renaissance, but we have already mentioned that. So thanks to all those factors, the art and culture were able to develop to great new levels. For example, the new system of astronomy was introduced by Copernicus, and it actually shattered the power of the Catholic Church because it contradicted what the Catholic Church told people about the system of astronomy. So, as an opposition to the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church was established, but we will not focus on that in a lot of detail because the Protestant Church was not really very influential in England. England already had an opposition to the Catholic Church, and that was the Anglican Church, established by the King Henry VIII. Another new development that was of huge influence was the inventing of printing. The invention of printing. Printing was invented in Germany in the 15th century, and as we already know, the first printing press appeared in Britain in the 15th century, but in the 16th century the printing continued to develop. In England, there appeared more printing presses, and more books were printed. Thanks to that, books became more available to people because printed books were both cheaper and quicker to create than handwritten books. So thanks to that, more people could afford to buy those books. Also, schools and universities were established in many European countries, and England was not an exception, so education became more available to people as well. And thanks to all that, great men appeared in art and science. So let's focus on some of the greatest developments of art and science in Europe. Columbus discovered America. Vasco da Gama reached the coast of India making his sea voyage, and Magellan went round the earth. So it seemed to the people of the Renaissance that the whole world was changing around them, and the world appeared in a new and different light. In art, the period of the Renaissance was characterized by the movement of humanism, which appeared thanks to the interest for the Greek and Roman ancient art. Following the example of the ancient art, the men of art of the period of the Renaissance focused on man. They put man in the center of their attention, and all scientists and artists actually tried to investigate man, explore him, and portray him in all the possible ways. Besides that, ancient culture was full of joy of life and glorified man, as opposed to the medieval culture. The medieval culture was dominated by religion, and the main message of the medieval art was actually that man was an evil being, and the only thing he could enjoy was his life afterwards in another world. But according to the men of Renaissance, the humanists, man had a right to live and enjoy himself right now and right here in this world and be happy on earth, not waiting for his life to end. The humanists reached outstanding results in art, so you surely know most of them. The Italian painters and sculptors Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, and Michelangelo were all representatives of the Renaissance. The Italian poets Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio, the French writer Rabelais, and the Spanish writer Cervantes all belong to the movement of humanism. Another thing to mention about the people of Renaissance is that this time produced giants in power, thought, character, and learning, and well, almost all men of importance of these times had traveled extensively and could speak many foreign languages. 4 or 5 foreign languages was a common thing, a typical thing for those times. So probably thanks to that, many men of art of the period were really versatile people. Versatile means that they were talented in several different spheres of art or art and science, and achieved incredible results in all of those spheres. For example, Leonardo da Vinci was not only a painter and sculptor, but also an architect, a mathematician, and an engineer. Michelangelo was not only a sculptor, but also a painter and poet. And Machiavelli, who is best known as a statesman and politician, was also a poet and a historian. So this wave of new cultural trends finally reached England in the 16th century, and well, in England, art, well, different spheres of art did not develop in the same way. So some of them, like music and painting, were lagging behind. So in those spheres, the art was mainly developed by some foreigners who came to England and settled there, such as the German painter Holbein and some Italian and French musicians. But in literature, England traditionally was really strong, so it had its own men there, and one of them was the humanist Sir Thomas More, probably the first English humanist of the Renaissance. Speaking about Sir Thomas More and his biography, we should say that he was born in London and educated at Oxford. He received a very thorough education. He started his life as a lawyer, but he was a really active-minded person and an acute observer of the society surrounding him. So soon he started writing on social and political topics, and he actually became the first great writer on those topics in English. But other English writings of Thomas More include biographies and poetry. Speaking about his religious views, they were a bit unusual. Thomas More was a Catholic. He did not switch to the Anglican Church when that was established. But there was one other unusual thing. Being a Catholic, he did not obey the Pope of Rome as the head of the Catholic Church, so he did not want to acknowledge the absolute power of one man over the whole church. The same way he disregarded the king as having the absolute power over the Anglican Church. So on one occasion he refused to obey the king as the head of the English Church, and because of that he was thrown into the Tower of London and beheaded there as a traitor. He was executed because of that. And as for his literary work, the work by which he is best remembered today is called Utopia. Utopia was written in Latin, and we can say that Sir Thomas More was fluent in Latin, but it soon became a very popular book, a bestseller, as we would put it now, and it was translated into all the existing European languages very quickly. Utopia is divided into two books. In the first one, the author gives a profound and truthful picture of the people's sufferings and points out the social evils existing in England at that time. So he speaks about the existing social order, and he points out to the social injustice and the many problems that common people face following the social structure. And in the second part of his book, Thomas More focuses on an ideal society of the future, the way he sees it. And this perfect society is a republic. So the government of this country is elected, it's not a monarchy. Everybody works, and all school education is free and available to everybody. And actually the main the things best appreciated in the society of this country are a man's health and wisdom, but not his wealth. So a man must be healthy and wise, but not rich. So in a way, Utopia describes a social system built on communist principles. It sounds a bit like communism. At first, it might seem that Sir Thomas More is quite optimistic about this future society, that he really hopes for that to happen sooner or later. But if we look deeper, we will see that well, this ideal republic is based on a non-existent island. This island does not exist in real life, but it was just invented by Sir Thomas More. And the name for this island is Utopia. But Utopia is a Greek word which can be translated as nowhere. So actually Sir Thomas More does not have high hopes of that ever happening. As you surely know, the word utopia has become a byword since those times. It's used quite often nowadays in modern English, and it has also been borrowed by many other European languages, including Russian. Utopia, we also use this word. And this word in English is typically used speaking about social and political matters to describe an unattainable ideal, something perfect in theory but really hard to reach in real life. And also, as you surely know, Utopia, the book Utopia, has given rise to a whole genre of literature called Utopia, which is based on describing some potentially possible social systems and societies which seem perfect to the author. And then still later there appeared another genre opposing this one. It's called dystopia. The Russian for that would be anti-utopia. And dystopias typically describe the the bad way things could develop, the author's nightmare of a possible society in the future.